He's widely considered one of the finest minds in the Indian Army, a former Northern Army commander who conducted India's surgical strikes. Today, Lieutenant General DS Hooda joins us a few days after he submitted his vision of a national security doctrine to the Congress President Rahul Gandhi. That document has not been made public as yet, but NDTV has been able to gather some details. Significantly, the BJP has hit out at the Congress after the party's election manifesto said that the controversial Armed Forces Special Powers Act will be reviewed. The question is this a part of the General's report? We'll be joined by General DS Hooda in a few moments, but first here's a look at the broad contours of the Congress's Security Doctrine report. The report is based on 5 pillars. These include India's rightful place in international affairs and what can be done to secure this, improving relations in the neighborhood and a further look at India's Act East policy, internal conflicts which do look at the Armed Forces Special Powers Act in the context of Jammu and Kashmir, also a look at the Northeast, and significantly the threat posed by transnational terrorism. Protecting our people, where the document looks at themes of economic security, energy security, the dangers of climate change and other impending risks. Finally, the document looks at capability building, intelligence, police, cyber threats, technology disruption, and indeed military modernization. Joining us now for this very special interview, Lieutenant General DS Hooda. Thanks very much, sir, for being with us. You're in the news today and yesterday, not for the document, which is a very large 40-plus page document, but because there is a suggestion by the BJP that you have said that AFSPA needs to go. That's their conjecture. Is that the case?
No, Vishnu, as you brought out, the whole national security strategy doctrine, encompasses a whole range of issues. Our place in world affairs, a secure neighborhood, internal conflicts. I think one key aspect is protecting our people because, people are at the heart and center stage of national security. And unless we can protect them from risks, I don't think we'll achieve true national security. And finally, the issues of capability building. I have talked about internal conflicts and a very broad strategy of how we should be looking at Jammu and Kashmir. But there is no mention of AFSPA as far as my document is concerned, nor is there any reference to the number of troops that are required to be there in the valley. Because I think these are steps which will come after we have a broad strategy in place. Is there something with my audio, Vishnu?
No, I understand completely, sir. I think the point that you mentioned right now is absolutely critical, that your report does not refer to getting rid of AFSPA. Is that clear? It's not there in your document, in which case you've been misunderstood.
No, Vishnu, I'm saying there is no reference to AFSPA one way or the other, because I think issues like AFSPA and the number of troops that are required to be there in Jammu and Kashmir to combat insurgency are steps which are subsequent to once we have a strategy in place. You see, one thing that I've said about Kashmir is that, our political objectives in Kashmir must be clear. And from those political objectives, we will draw our military strategy. And as part of that strategy, what needs to be done, how much troops are required to be there. All these things, I think, are subsequent steps that need to be taken. So one way or another, there is no mention about these, which I think are tactical issues rather than strategic issues.
Yeah. So you believe that a lot of this criticism is entirely politically driven. It's not based on what you wrote. Yes, the Congress in its manifesto did speak about AFSPA, but that's not what you have referred.
No, Vishnu, I haven't. I haven't talked about it, as I said. But, I think it's also not right that you start equating a political document like a manifesto with India national security strategy, because these two things are completely different. One looks at, what you want to promise to the people if you come into governance. One is a long-term look at how we look at India's future as far as this national security is concerned, and what are the strategic steps that need to be taken as we go ahead.
Sure. And I take that point completely. The other point, and I will after that go through all of the various points that you've raised in your report, is the political rhetoric right now is of Modiji ki sena. It's not just something that Yogi Adityanath said, another BJP leader said it now as well. Isn't this something that disturbs you? Because the Indian Army, Air Force, Navy, they aren't about one person or one party, they are about what we all are, Indians.
Absolutely, Vishnu, and that is why the term that is always used is the Indian Army, the Indian Navy, and the Indian Air Force. So these are forces that belong to the country, and it's their task to defend the country, irrespective of whatever political affiliation there is at that stage in government. So we don't look at it in the military like this. So I think some of the statements that have been made, saying this is so-and-so's army or this is so-and-so sena, I think it's most unfortunate.
Yeah. And do you believe, however, that is a part of what we are seeing in this election campaign, strident nationalism, perhaps using the prowess of our armed forces as a political instrument?
True, Vishnu, it is happening. So I won't say, people use the term politicization of the army. So I really won't take that term because I don't see the military really being politicized. I think the issue is that the military should not get dragged into, political debates, which is increasingly happening. And I think that's, what the unfortunate part is. And that is why, Vishnu, I was very happy to take on this task of preparing a national security strategy.
Yes.
And I think the Congress needs to be commended for it because, unfortunately, we are looking at national security today from a very narrow prism of, counter-border sort of trans-border terrorism.
From surgical strike to surgical
security.
strike.
Yeah. So, I mean, frankly, I'm not saying these are not important parts. But as I said, national security is a much, much wider canvas. And unless we start looking at how we can secure our people and provide them a comfortable and secure external and internal environment, I don't think we will actually look at national security holistically. And that's preventing us from actually taking a hard look at what our national security strategy should be.
Yeah. General, you designed the surgical strikes, the original surgical strikes. It was a very difficult mission. It went off well. Fortunately, we didn't lose any lives over there. But is there a sense that, you can't be doing this always? It's at some stage or the other, it's going to be problematic. You'll sustain losses. This time around, of course, Wing Commander Abhinandan was shot down. It could have been a lot worse. Yes, we have made a point, but perhaps the expectation that this can be done on short notice is misplaced.
Vishnu, I won't entirely agree with you. You see, one thing is certain, that merely going from surgical strike to surgical strike is not going to give us, in a long-term dividends of what we want. And what we want is that Pakistan should stop cross-border terrorism. And therefore, I've always said that we need a long-term consistent policy as far as Pakistan is concerned, which combines, economic pressure, diplomatic pressure, political pressure, and where required, military actions. And if we have to take unilateral military actions, we should. But I think it should be part of a cohesive, coherent, long-term strategy, rather than just thinking that one strike after another is something that is, going to resolve all our problems. And the second point, a small point I want to make, Vishnu, is what you said, that yes, as we up the ante, there is a greater risk for escalation. But I don't think we should just keep that at the back of our mind and say we will not do it because of a risk of escalation. As long as we are prepared for the responses that come and we are properly prepared, I think we should not rule out the military option at all.
Yeah. General, are you going to join the Congress party?
No, I'm not, Vishnu.
So I'm just trying. You have no political ambitions.
No, I don't, Vishnu.
So you handed over this document, of course, at the request of the Congress, just for the sake of presenting views which you believe are valid, not because you seek to promote the Congress in any way.
Not at all, Vishnu. I think it's an important part of how we frame our national security narrative, that we need a written national security strategy. because that forms the basis for what we do subsequently. How do we make our military doctrine, our military strategy? Even today, you find the three services coming out with their own separate doctrines. So if we have a national security strategy in place, at least it provides the framework for how the military makes its strategy. And not only the military, Vishnu, as I said, this talks about climate change, it talks about technology disruption, it talks about managing our demography, reducing income inequalities, improving our cyber capabilities, police, intelligence. So I think it provides a broad sort of guidance for other organs of the state to see how they need to frame their policies after this. So I think it was something that was very much required as far as India is concerned. And I was very happy to contribute when I was asked that, if I could take on this task.
Yeah. General, important points, because, the report you've written is on 5 pillars. Military capability is one, terrorism, tackling terrorism inside, the threat of international terror is the other. Do you believe, in having been in the system till fairly recently, that there is no cohesive vision or understanding of what security implies, that when one talks about security, it's only about guns, planes and tanks, and not the larger cohesive picture which you talk about, which is water security, cyber security, disruptive technology? All of that is missing. Over here in our system, it often seems that we need a gun and we need to shoot, when security is so much larger.
Absolutely, Vishnu, I completely agree with you. And that is why I also said earlier in your program that, we are trying to base our national security around, 2-3 narratives about, as I said, cross-border terrorism, about, Jammu and Kashmir and some internal security issues. How are you going to secure millions of people from income inequality, from climate change and environment distress, the social divisiveness that can come in through social media. So yes, capability building is an important part, but I think we need to look at all these in a very comprehensive manner.
Yeah. One final question to you, General. Just going back to what I had asked you earlier, are you personally in favor of AFSPA either being removed or scaled down considerably in Jammu and Kashmir?
Okay, Vishnu, I'll just take 2 minutes on this.
Sure.
I think we should not talk about dilution or removal of the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, because it's something that is legally required for the Army to operate in that area. But it's also no secret, and I've written about it on a number of occasions. I think it needs a review. And I'm saying it needs a review for 2 important reasons. The first reason is, of course, it's become a bad word, and it's a stick that human rights activists, some civil society groups are using to sort of defend the army. I can tell you with confidence that we have an excellent human rights record. So is it something that we need to sort of look at if this is the sort of reputation that an act has? Secondly, and more importantly, Vishnu, after the 2016 Supreme Court judgment on AFSPA, 700 officers went to court.
Yes.
And they went to court because they felt that the judgment has sort of diluted the AFSPA completely. Because it talked about excessive use of force. I mean, how do you judge excessive use of force? It talked about investigations can be done by any organization, not necessarily the army. It also said that the army people can be tried in criminal court. So I think the way AFSPA is today, it is not providing adequate protection even to our soldiers. And therefore, there are major problems with it, and we seriously need to review it. But as I said again, I won't use the word dilution, I won't use the word removal, but certainly a review of the act is required.
All right. General DS Hooda, it's always a pleasure speaking to you and getting an idea of you on so many of these themes. Thank you very much, sir, for speaking to us.
Thank you, Vishnu. Thank you.